I'm going to go ahead and embrace this as a relationship channel, but more on traditional
Right.
relationships. And let's see, hold on a
You
second.
know what I appreciate, Tree?
What's
You
that?
like you start new channels and then they all go viral. Like all of them just get traction. Some people can't start over the same way you can. Just
I
like
I
so
don't know. You know what? Here's the deal. If YouTube would just leave me alone, and they just now left me alone, because now I'm not. I If you look at this channel, the beginning of this
mhm,
channel went into politics, and then it started going into politics and deal with social events, and then it dabbled into relationships, and then I stopped, and then I started again, and then I said, you know what, maybe this is my calling, and I'll go ahead and stay consistent. And I would have to say, YouTube, because when I was doing the politics part and everything, like they will always like
right.
take the video and demonetize it, or I'll get a strike or something like that. So I
Mhm.
said, well, all right, the Treehouse News is still a thing. So let me go ahead and dedicate this to relationship. However, I'm not doing the whole men ain't this and women ain't that and blah, 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 because I don't know that world. Okay. And I don't
Sure,
have
sure.
friends that live that world. And I think because you have so many damaged people showing you their wounds and getting videos for their confirmation bias, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, how many, I want to be the video that shows, hey, it's out there. I live this life. I don't know the scarcity you guys talk about. And I don't know these bad people you guys talk about. You know what I'm saying? All the bad people I know are on the internet. I don't know any bad
Right,
people in
right.
real life, you know what I'm saying? So there's that. Okay. So hey everybody, I know we're starting. Okay, we're live now. Hey everybody, I know we started early. But we'll go ahead and do some basic things. Zach is here. And I know you all been like, where has he been? And so we're gonna talk about where he's been, what he's been doing, some exciting news, and everything like that. Now, before we get right into it, let me explain. Well, say hi, Zach. Say hi. I'm just going right into it. Like,
Yeah, thanks, Tree, for having me on. I know it's been a couple of years since you and me have spoken on YouTube, but we've kind of kept in touch, a little bit here and there every
yeah,
like 6 or 8 months or so.
yeah,
I'm doing
exactly.
well. Yeah, happy to dive into it. And for a lot of people who kind of watch both of our channels, know I am not gone forever. I just have life that happened, but I will be back. And I know I say that a lot, but I do mean it this time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, they'll be here when you get here. Now, let me tell you how we got a chance to get you on. Um, I am subscribed to your channel, but as you know, YouTube doesn't notify us of if you upload videos. But you have
Hmm.
been infrequent with the uploads. But even with your the every now and then when you upload a video, I don't get notified. So all of a
Right.
sudden, I don't know what it was. I was like, how is Zach doing? Because of course I contacted you like, hey Zach, you want to come in on my panel? Or hey, Zach, you want to do this? And you was like, no, I got church and I got Bible study. And I was like, man, I cannot compete against church and Bible study. Okay, I'm gonna lose that game. So
Right.
anyway, all of a sudden, I just out of the blue, I wanted to check up on you. And I went to your channel and I binge watched, and I was like, oh, and I was so happy with the most recent I don't know if you uploaded a video since then, but the good news video was when I emailed you and I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. It's so great. This idea. I went to your website, which is listed below, by the way, everybody. Zach Hing's .com, I think it is, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. I have that listed down there. So basically, if you guys check them out, please do so. So now I think we're at we're at the top of the hour. So let's get into it. So listen, Zach, a lot of things have been a lot of great things, and you probably had some challenges along the way, especially with your YouTube channel has happens along the way.
Mhm.
Let's start all the way back to when you was on Jubilee. First of all, tell us, how did you get that gig? And then how was your experience and what happened afterwards?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So Jubilee, that middle ground video actually surprisingly turned out to be one of the more popular ones. I think it's got close to 10 million views, which is incredible.
Wow.
But the thing was, interesting story, and some of the other panelists will confirm this as well. That was actually an episode that they weren't sure that they wanted to put up just because of how incendiary it was. I mean, as you can tell, and I am going to say this about Jubilee, they're good at bringing people together, but they're also out of touch with the people that they bring together. So they grouped me in with an incel and a men's rights activist, and knowing me and just being a conservative,
it was a weird, it was a weird setup.
Christianity, I mean, as a Christian, you know, I am going to push more pro-masculine ideas that are obviously emphasized in the Bible, as well as to what a good man is and everything and what's required in that. So they reached out to me. I think this was, I think it was the early part of 2019. And we filmed that in the summer of 2019, and it didn't go up until I think December of that year. That's how long that gap was. And so it was obviously, it was a panel with myself, Kursat, and Derek. Unfortunately, you know, that whole comment section is just peppered with stuff, you know, attacking him, which is unfortunate because I think, you know, I think his story is interesting. It's just that the way he kind of he portrayed himself was not in the greatest light. I'll leave it at that. So long story short, it was an incendiary conversation with the feminists. I thought it was actually pretty cordial for the most part, with, you know, a few kind of hiccups here and there with some people that, you know, certain things were said that were rubbed the wrong way, but it went really well. They reached out to me because at that time I was doing a whole lot of, like, I think it was like Asian men dating type stuff, like healthy masculinity, you know, and I've always kind of
make Asian men great again.
Right. I've fallen into that little bubble of Christianity with Asian men and dating and all these different dynamics and politics as well, because they're all kind of related, you know, in this big realm of political and social commentary, that they figured, okay, I'd be an ideal fit. And it was supposed to be a men's rights panel. So keep in mind, the only person who was a men's rights activist was Kursat.
Right.
I was not qualified to speak on this, you know, and Derek, obviously, they kind of group us all in the same thing. So that's what I mean by they're a little bit out of touch. They didn't really do their homework. But that being said, it was a very productive conversation in its own way, because it kind of went everywhere and people were like, wow, this is like some crazy stuff. So that experience was really great. I wouldn't say it necessarily helped the growth of my channel. And I think if you notice in that video, I didn't really plug much of my stuff because I'll be honest, I had no idea how this was going to go. Like Jubilee, middle ground, it's going to go one way or the other.
It sure will,
And truth of the matter is, even if you're called to be on the panel, it doesn't mean that they're actually going to use that segment. If they deem it appropriate and they edit it properly and they're like, hey, this is some great content, we'll put it up. But if not, you know, that segment was not going to be one. The director, John, was literally like, yeah, we might not use this. And then he puts it up and it's like one of his more popular ones just because of how heated it got. But yeah, that was the experience. Great experience, but it kind of set in line a lot of reactions and a lot more of these discussions between. And I'm not going to lie, I think it is one of those videos that kind of inspired or re-inspired a conversation between feminists and men and people trying to, you know, get back into some traditional values here or whatnot, because it is a little crazy. I mean, if you listen to some of their talking points, it's like,
I did.
You know, so yeah, some of the people in the chat were like, yeah, that's that guy, and I'm like, yeah, that was me.
So like afterwards, did you continue the same content?
So interestingly enough, you know, I continued to make content here and there. Again, still trying to find my voice a little bit, as I've always been this whole time. And I'm not in a place where I need to be making content. You know, I make a living outside of YouTube that kind of affords me a bit of a remote lifestyle. I do a lot of like online internet type work. And so that was good. You know, YouTube is a nice outlet for my opinions and to be able to get the message out there. Now it's more of a Christian Bible doctrine based channel and, you know, kind of teaching the Bible a little bit, but also talking a little bit more about my lifestyle and my testimony, you know, how people can get saved. You know, that's an important facet of Christianity. We can get into that in a little bit too.
Yeah.
But so I'm not sure what your question was. Okay.
So you are now married, right?
Right.
How did you meet your wife?
I met her on January 5th of 2020, which was not that long ago. It was only a little bit
What? Wait a
longer.
minute. I
Yeah.
thought you knew her longer than that.
No. I met her the beginning of last year in church in my pastor's home. So there's a story there. There really is. At the end of 2019, I was, getting right in a sense. Like I've always been a Christian. I believe that I've been saved. I've had my sins forgiven. But here's the thing about Christianity is that you ask 10 different people if they're Christians, if they're saved, you're going to get 10 different answers. You're going to get people that are not living consistently in line with what the Bible talks about and whatnot. So I was at a point in my life where I was trying to do right, getting into a good church, a Bible believing church, and I got to be honest, it is a Baptist church. Now, Baptist comes in 10 different stripes,
Yeah.
Because you got Westboro on the extreme, and then you got all these other, liberal Baptist churches. So I like to think of it as
How do
this.
you
Like,
avoid the liberal ones?
Well, we'll get into that. It's
Okay.
about what they believe doctrinally. So
Okay.
I am a Baptist by conviction,
Okay.
but I am a Christian by conversion, and Bible Christianity is what drives my life. So I had just been going to this church, in my hometown here in Tempe. I live in Chandler now for only a couple of weeks. And, I went on a road trip with my dad before that. And we were kind of talking about like the future and women. And he was telling me a story about how he met my mom. He met her in church as well. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to trust the Lord on this. I was just getting back in church, trying to live right, do right. And I don't mean like be a good person. I mean like, actually follow what the Bible has to say about maintaining standards in your life and a degree of holiness, and just living by the book. And sure enough, I prayed for a wife, and she showed up the next day. Now, I didn't know it at the time, and she was actually just visiting her sister who lived there.
Oh,
who
so
is now
she's
my
not
in-law.
a part of your church back then. She wasn't a part of your
She
church.
was going to another Baptist church because my wife is from Minnesota. So
Okay.
she's from a town called St. Charles out in Minnesota.
Okay.
And she goes to church out in Rochester. So, she was visiting for a bit. We kind of talked, and this is a real long story, but in short, what ended up happening was we kind of had a bit of a distance relationship, right? That kind of started off as a friendship. That was the important thing. And then it was just we were...
Hold that thought. Put a pin in that. Who approached who at the house?
I did.
Okay,
I went up to her and, said hi and did the typical thing you do. Wasn't trying to be fly or anything. I just, thought she was cute and went up and talked to her. She's probably listening. Red in the face or whatnot. But that's what happened, and we started dating only a couple months after that, and we got engaged, I think, in June of last year, and we were married in September of 2020, all while COVID was going down.
Hold on. She was still away in Minnesota in June, yeah?
No, I mean I would visit her a lot, and she would come down here a couple of times, so it wasn't a strict distance relationship. She had family down here, and I had a lifestyle that allowed me to kind of go over there.
Right.
So don't think of this like kind of like you were set up one time in
that's why I had to ask that question. Yeah.
No, we dated in terms of we went out and did things together. It's just that what normally would take people 2, 3, 5 years to happen, we knew what we were looking for, and we knew we were trying to do things the way the Lord wanted us to do it. And so when you go into a relationship, and you can ask me about this too, because I think this is what you were getting at.
Yeah.
Friendship first, and what you're looking for in a marriage, and what the Lord wants. You don't need to spend 6 years dating somebody because if they're going to be serious up front. In fact, I even told her, like, I like you. I want to get to know you. I want to date you and being transparent. The purpose here being if you're going to be compatible for marriage, really, and that needs to be opened up early on, contrary to what popular culture will tell you.
I don't know why people put that off, because I think they're afraid to know the answer.
Yeah, no, obviously you can't just go up to somebody and be like, I'm going to marry you, because that's going to scare them off. But what you can do is do right by the Lord. And I will say this, you know, it's kind of part of our story. I think the Lord had his hand in that, because it's just one of those things where it's like, my church is a church of like 15, 20 people,
That's
mostly
it?
like men and families with kids. Yeah, I mean, it's bigger now, 25, 30. It fluctuates a little bit. And I met her. I met her there. She was visiting that weekend in January for a couple of weeks, and then we maintained, and I visited her back in February, and we met almost consistently every month. You know, flew out, surprised her, proposed in June, and got married at the end of September. And now we've been married, gosh, 7 months, almost as long as we had known each other up until that point. So, yeah.
When she moved to you, right?
Oh, she moved down when we got married in Rochester in Minnesota. We came back here, you know, and you know, she like moved into my apartment and stuff. So no, you know, there was no cohabitation, there was no shacking up beforehand or whatnot. You know, I'm just gonna be honest, you know,
No,
as
I want you
Christians,
to be
there was
brutally
no
honest. I
defiling
love
the
it.
marriage bed beforehand, and then you know, she came and moved in, and then you know, we moved to Chandler, which is just a suburb of Phoenix, you know, in this house, and that's where we're at now. So
How was the
yeah.
marriage ceremony during COVID? Did you have to do something basic because of COVID, or were your family and friends able to come and celebrate that union to get with you and your wife?
You know what? The Lord was good. Like, it was a real blessing. We got married on September 26th. It was a beautiful day, and it was a morning wedding. So her church, her pastor was very gracious, made it happen. Because when I had popped the question in June, I went to church with her obviously that weekend and talked to her pastor and said, hey, you know, we'd like, you know, I proposed you know, and they all knew, people in her congregation knew, obviously praying for us and stuff like that. So this was not one of those things where it was like, oh wow, you're getting married and nobody knows about it. Like, our families were very much involved. I spoke to her dad before I asked if I got married. Me
Oh,
and her
that's so
dad talked, you
awesome,
know.
Zach. Oh
Yeah, it wasn't like,
my
let's
gosh.
get married and like, let's go to Vegas. It wasn't like that at all. It was very step by step. My pastor knew about it. Her pastor knew about it. They talked. It was very kind of like ordered in the right way where, hey, you know, if you're going to do right by God, you got to do right by each other's fathers and their pastors. And that's a way of knowing, because here's the thing. I know people think, man, I just love this person so much. But if everyone in your family doesn't see that, or they don't see you ending up with this person because maybe they're just incompatible, they're not responsible, they have qualities that are not as desirable, you need to listen to people like that. I know that's contrary to what we're taught, but your
Yeah,
parents,
yeah.
especially if you're raised in a fairly decent
But
Christian
that's
home, they do know
tradition,
better.
though. You know what I'm saying? It was tradition. Back in
Correct.
tradition, you had to act, the man
And
had to ask permission from the father.
that's right, and that's exactly what I did. And keep in mind, Tree, I'm like everybody else. I was just trying to get right, trying to do right. So this was foreign to me. This was kind of like, why would I ask your dad? But I figured, look, if I'm going to end up with this person, you know, this is just doing right by her as well. Because I don't want to be in this where it's like, I just love you and nobody else has to be involved in this. No, your families are involved, and I love my in-laws. I love her parents. You know, my parents love her. It's not one of these things where it's like, oh my goodness, our son and our daughter just married someone strange and we don't know anything about this person. So they were very much involved from the very beginning, even when we were friends. And then all the way through while we were dating and engaged, it was a very involved process. So we got married during COVID. The Lord was good. Thankfully, we didn't have to do the whole mask thing. I know that might
You
offend
know, I was
some
going to ask
people.
you about that. Like, did you have to
Yeah,
wear the mask? Did you have to do all that social distancing or what?
right. No, thankfully, we obviously kept some of the parameters, but you know, it was a wonderful day. We had the reception, we had the ceremony and everything all at the church. We had pancakes. It was kind of like a morning themed wedding, you know, and we, you know, planned it, budgeted, you know, paid for it ourselves. And, you know, it was a wonderful day, a perfect day. Got pictures taken. And Yeah, thankfully it wasn't like a COVID wedding. Like no one was wearing masks in there. We wanted to do it right. If you watch the wedding video, which I know is not on the internet because it's ours, but it's just like any
Well,
other
I think it
wedding.
should be
It was
private. No, I mean,
yeah,
internet people don't need to see something so nice like
right.
that. So
There's a degree of my private life, even her like I mean, people know her name because it's on like my Instagram. But
right.
obviously, knowing us, we're typically polarizing people, and I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to create a little bit of that drama.
Right, right, right,
So,
right, right,
but,
right.
I'm just trying to be smart in this area. But yeah, long story short, it was good. Even with COVID and everything, we were able to get married. We were able to facilitate all the things that we needed to do, even go on the honeymoon and everything. And it wasn't a problem. It really
Where was
wasn't.
the honeymoon?
We went to Tahoe in in Nevada / California, because Tahoe is right on the border of like, Reno area, Nevada, and California. So
Okay.
it
All
was
right.
great.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like a well-budgeted, basic type of wedding and honeymoon that didn't put you guys
Right.
in
It
debt.
wasn't fancy. Like when we got married, we weren't broke,
Right,
thankfully.
right.
It was like
Good.
we had no debt, we weren't broke. I was like, wow, we're sitting on a chunk of change. Like, and that's why, that's kind of how we live. We just we live pretty modestly. She's pretty prudent, which is great. So I am blessed in that regard, that I married somebody who, she didn't have truckloads of debt or anything. And, she had money
Good.
saved up. I had money saved up. I was like, wow, this is great. Normally,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not going to lie. A lot of women are broke. So
A lot of them. A lot of them. They don't know nothing about financing and savings and anything like
no,
that.
no. And she didn't even have a credit card until she met me. So,
Wow.
hey,
Wow.
look, if that's okay, like you can live without a credit card. I
Yeah,
mean,
you
I know it's a
can.
little against the grain, but yes, you can. And you should probably, because you just spend what you have and you don't spend what you don't have. It's just a simple equation. So thankfully everything was good. And yeah, COVID aside, it was a very blessed day. And I wouldn't change it. There was no hiccups, no major obstacles in the way when we got married. So
Now, I want to before we go and explore more in your relationship, because you and your wife are a great example of other Christians and even non-Christians should aim for. But I know I'm going to get this question. Uh, how were you able to find a conservative or a non-liberal church in your area? Because I think your area is more purple or blue, something like that. It's not, yeah. I mean, how was that possible?
So there's a really, really prolific Christian / Baptist, King James, Bible believing guy out there. Now, here's the thing. I know I got to say this for people who are listening, but generally, Christianity in itself is a rainbow in itself in terms of its spectrum and its beliefs, right? But the Lord's been working in my heart, and this was before I even started going to my church. I became King James, and that's a whole discussion in itself as to what Bible you got to be using.
Yeah, yeah,
But I'm
yeah.
a King James Bible user, in terms of what I believe in my faith and my practice as well. And Baptist is a label, but it paints the expectation as to what you're going to get, because the Baptists are still, in terms of fundamental Baptists, they're still doing things right. Now, I'm not saying Fred Phelps and Westboro Baptist Church got it right, because they don't.
Right.
You've got nuts in every corner
Everywhere,
of
every
Christianity.
sector.
So
Yeah.
the balance is Bible believing. Do they have standards for dress? Do they have standards for entertainment? Right? Do the men actually keep their houses under control? Their kids listen to them, obey to them, and it's a loving house, but at the same time there needs to be that structure there. And to answer your question, there's a big Christian YouTuber out there now. When I had met him, he was smaller than me. Now he's blown up and he's big deal. Spencer Smith. I'm sure some people may know him, may not know him.
I know
His
him.
ministry, his ministry is about kind of pointing out the errors in truth and really apostate Christianity. So he's a big speaker out there on where the world's headed, Hillsong and all this, being the big unifier of corrupting churches. Apostasy is rampant in our day. And I reached out to him, and he recommended the church that I now go to. So thankfully, I knew somebody off of YouTube, right, who had the same standards as I was a King James fundamental Bible believing Christian. We can even exclude the term Baptist, but he was a Bible believer, lived and actually believed the word. He recommended the church that I went to. I showed up that first night on December 15th, under my pastor's preaching, and it was red hot, fiery, old school, and I loved it, and I never left. And that's where I met her. So no, it wasn't Tinder or Bumble or anything like that. If you're gonna find the right,
I'm not into. I got. Excuse me. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I'll forget this. I got a video coming out on Monday about places to meet traditional conservative men, and I put the church, but I didn't put church service. I put church events and Bible study. But
right.
the thing about it is that I never done online dating, and it looks like the people who have done it have not been successful, and they don't like it.
Well, and that's the thing about online dating, right? It is a facade that you can hide behind and everything. Because even with Christians, right? Even if there was if there was an app that was geared towards Christians, you can always fake it. And just because someone puts Christian in their profile doesn't mean they live and they walk it. And I know that firsthand from knocking on people's doors and trying to get them the gospel. And it's like, a lot of people are professing Christians, but they don't live and breathe it. And they don't actually believe and even know what they believe. And that's the scary part. So you walk into most of these evangelical churches and you ask them their testimony, if they believe they'll say they all believe in God. Well, the Jews believe in God. The Muslims believe in God. Buddhism has some degree of God up there, whether it's in here or up there. It's all vague. So what I'm trying to say is being specific. And if you think about it like this, right? If I was trying to tell your audience or my audience as well about finding the right person, this is where that sort of cliche concept of leave it up to the Lord actually makes a whole lot of sense. Because if you're doing right and living right and you're in church, I mean, there are people there, but don't expect them to find them on Instagram or Tinder. And also, if a church girl was on Instagram, whatever, not Instagram's a bad example, but on Tinder,
I was like, I hope she's not on Instagram.
Right. Well, it says more about the attitude of the heart and what they're really looking for than actually living for the Lord and pleasingly. So you see what I mean? It's kind of like there are conservative Christian Bible believing, traditional conservative, whatever you want to call it, type women out there. You're not going to find them on Reddit. You're not going to find them on Tinder. You're just not, because if they truly were, they wouldn't be on these platforms.
True.
Or at least on these platforms to find the person they're going to end up with.
True. Yeah, I am a proponent that meeting people in person is way better than meeting online, because you can hide a lot, you can lie a lot, you can do a lot of things online. And I don't really trust people online anyway, so there's that. Now, getting back to your relationship. So we talked a little bit about this behind the scene, but I want to really talk about it more now when we get together. I talk about traditional values, and we're talking about where the man is the head of the household. That seems to be I never met any woman in my subscriber count that thinks that's against that. But what I showed them is that you got a lot of women on the left, especially liberals. They have these liberal women. They feel liberated. They feel like, well, he's not the head, but he is more on we're more even, or he gets 50% and I get 50%, blah blah blah. And I think they don't understand what head of the household means. I think they're thinking if the man is the head of the household, then that makes her a servant to him.
Right. Unfortunately, what's happened is, with women, I think we can obviously talk all day about the advent of women's rights and the feminist movement, not just seeping into Christianity, but just into, every facet of life, possible. And that women were fed this lie in the 40s and 50s under the guise of, being able to do everything a man can do. And now it's not that women can't do all of these things. It's just that the Bible and what God has created for us in terms of what he's orchestrated, what he's ordained, is a system, a structure that when we live within these lines, and they are not confines, because my wife doesn't feel like she's, like she doesn't feel like she's boxed in. She is who she is, and is the stay-at-home mom, wife, and everything, traditional wife, because she wants to be, because that is her role.
Right.
And biblical roles were something that was thrown out the window. Because the funny thing is, before like the 40s, everybody, like America pretty much had that. Like not everybody was a Christian, but we kind of adhered more to the Christian faith in terms of our,
Yes.
because here's the thing, even a lost couple, somebody who weren't Christians, like living together with someone you weren't married to, that was an abomination in the eyes of somebody who wasn't even a Christian. And this was, we're talking like liberals in the 40s and 50s. But sure enough, Rosie the Riveter came about, and men went off to war, and women started to work and wear pants and stuff, and they started to do all that type of thing, and that's what you got. So to kind of just go back to your question, the first institution that God ordained, and this was way before even government, before the law of Moses, before any of that, was marriage, which is the building block of society. Genesis chapter 2, he makes a man, a woman gets built out of the rib of man, Adam and Eve. And the first thing God does was he institutes the first sort of construct for people, which is marriage. And marriage, the institution of marriage, is the building block of not only the home, but society as a whole. Because what you'll notice is that in countries and places where there are stable marriages and households, the society actually thrives.
Yeah.
You don't even have to believe in it. You just have to do it.
Right.
Like actually following the order of get married before having a kid. Who knew that actually would produce in the long run, good character traits in terms of a stable home in your children, so that when they grow up, they don't go around, doing what people are doing now. So what I'm trying to say is, that's just been what's been right the entire time since the very beginning. Like the fact that marriage even precedes the law. And that was something that God instituted, which was one man, one woman, and their household, says a lot, right? And this is not like something, a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't believe in monogamous marriage. What they're saying is they don't believe in that institution, but they're only looking at it through the lens of, say, the last 50 to 60 years. Because truth of the matter is Western society didn't maintain itself with the amount of people running around and shacking up and not getting married that we have today. I mean, you mean to tell me that, in 1 out of every 2 homes of broken homes, children that are being raised are going to actually have, your next generation is going to have all the fundamental building blocks of society? You're crazy.
No, not
and
at
it's
all.
eroding before our very eyes. So the original, I know I'm kind of going on a big stream, but I'm giving you the context.
Yeah.
But women fulfill a very specific role that's complementary to them. It's actually what they want at the end of the day. And just because you're not working and you're not keeping up with the men and making your own money or whatnot doesn't make you any less. It's just what your role is, and they complement each other, which is why when men try to be women, it doesn't turn out so well. And when women try to be men, they end up lonelier than ever. It's just best to follow the role that God has designed for us. And I can stand on that. I can stand on that because that's what I believe to be true, regardless of what sociologists and philosophers and scientists have to say about how, okay, well, we just, we're not monogamous people. Yeah, that's if you're an animal.
I don't believe
we're not
that.
animals. We're human beings.
Yeah,
So,
I don't believe that you're running into people I don't believe that thing that we're not meant to be monogamous people. That don't, what I'm saying? Because I can point to several animals in the animal kingdom that would debunk that. But you actually meet, I don't meet anybody who believes in polygamy.
okay.
You run into those a lot?
No, but it is out there where a lot of men and women have effectively checked out of this. Obviously, I'm not talking about Christians here, and they feel like that's just the way to go now. Because if you get married,
well, some Christians are a little frustrated. That's why I was so happy to have you on. I have some Christians that are frustrated of constantly being the bad guy by these libtards on the left, and they're painted. Islam is given a pass, but Christianity bad, and then also finding a woman. And then with some women finding a man, it's both sexes, it's both genders that are having problems finding another person of faith.
Right. I mean, I wish I had a solution, a better solution to the predicament that a lot of men and women are facing. And I do believe that it is more difficult now than it has been. But that's where the whole, look, what's the alternative, right? you got to just start doing right in terms of your life. Like if you
But you
get back
also
in
went
church
out there.
and
I do have to give you that disclosure, is that I asked them, so where have you gone to meet anybody? It's like, well, you know, I joined this. I was like, no, not online. Have you ever left out your house, you know, to participate in anything at your church event, or, you know, and some of them barely go to church. So I'm thinking like, well, you got to put some, you can't hit a hitting target.
and you hit the nail on the head right there, because a lot of people think you show up just that first week or that second week and something's just supposed to
Yeah.
happen and you're magically going to click with somebody. And I've learned, you know, from experience now that it's just the opposite. I mean, relationships and interactions with people, guess what? They're supposed to be awkward. There's supposed to be some friction, like, yeah, I don't really quite know how to talk to this person. Yeah, you know what? If it's really going to work out and you're more than just your first impression, then they'll probably kind of continue this interaction that you have. But I think that's the problem with the whole Instagram and instant validation and culture, is like, you think just because you don't have chemistry with somebody, supposed chemistry, then you're just going to ride them off and that's it. There's no point in pursuing any type of friendship or any type of conversation. And how can you expect people to exhibit the best sides of themselves when they've got to make the best that they can be in 5 or 10 seconds? I mean, that's actually unfair for some
Right.
people. But that's just how it works. People go to church 1 or 2 weeks and they feel out the vibe, and if it's not there, they bail. And I'm talking strictly in a relationship setting. When I went to my church and there was nobody there that I could have, and I was okay with that. Like I told God, like, look, if I'm just going to be single for months or years on end, like that's okay. So my heart was already in the right place in terms of it was content with where I was going. And obviously my real desire was to get married and have kids one day, but I wasn't going to change living and doing right for that greater desire, because I knew that if that was God's will for me to get married, it would happen. And if it's not, then you know what? You got to be content with that. That's the key word there. Like you just have to be content with where you're at, but obviously make the effort. You know, make the effort and stick around and commit. That's the key word too. Like stick to something for 6 months to a year at least before you start to see some fruits
That's
from
some
it.
good advice. Yeah.
Because people give up too quickly. They really do. In fact, I can't say that the first interaction I had with my wife was like, you know, a Hollywood movie where the chemistry was just electric and magic. It wasn't. It was awkward. She was really shy, and I was kind of like, I'm not sure if I ought to be doing this in church. And those are the things that you don't hear from people. But guess what? It's absolutely necessary.
But
If
you
you're
didn't
gonna
give
end
up though,
with this
Zach.
person- No, and if you're gonna end up with this person, your actions in terms of what you're doing in your Christian life or your walk should exhibit greater qualities than just that you do. Like you're going to get another chance to bat. You don't strike out on your first swing. And that's the thing with Tinder, because with Tinder, it's like, I don't like how you look and you're gone. I don't like how you look on Bubble and you're gone. And real life doesn't work that way.
I didn't know
Real
anything
life
about
affords you a
Tinder,
second
and I
chance.
had to ask my taters. I said, okay, what is it when you don't agree with someone? Because I wanted to use it as a metaphor. Like, what do you use? Swipe left and swipe right, and they all said swipe left. And it's amazing how I didn't know any of this, that they had to teach it to me. It was so funny. I just can't do those type of apps and everything like that. I have a question though. So, and this is important for people who are interested in getting a relationship that are also underneath the faith. Like when you and your wife, because you're a new couple, and you have questions or concerns, you know, who do you both seek guidance from?
Well, the first thing we do, it depends on what that is, right? If there's concerns or if there's things that come up, the first thing we do is we see what the Bible has to say about it. And I know,
Where would you look though?
one of those answers, right?
No. Because I got to ask the follow up for Christians, and they're going to say, well, where do one look in the Bible?
Okay, so you know, the book of Ephesians has some, you know, especially Ephesians 5 talks about the dynamic between husbands and wives, and the reason for that is because that's the picture of Christ and his church, right? The church is his bride and Christ is the head of the church, so husband, wife. And what you're getting there is a picture. You know, Jesus Christ was always faithful to us, even when he let him down, and a husband has to be like that as well, always faithful to his wife, even if she doesn't always do right. So that right there, you get a good picture as to how you need to be working things out within your marriage. And that's in Ephesians 5. A great book is also Proverbs. The whole book of Proverbs is all about, looking for wisdom and how to find the right woman, how to avoid the strange woman, and to seek the right people by being able to discern who not to pair up with based off of their character traits. And the book of Proverbs is a good thing for not just your home life in terms of practical living, but also how to rear your children, how to discipline them if necessary, how to make informed, discern decisions as well, even saving your money. All of that is very practical in the book of Proverbs. So in terms of like marriage advice, you're going to get examples all throughout the entire Bible, obviously, right, as to what to do and what not to do. But in terms of like, if we had some concerns where it's like, all right, we're going to go to the Bible first. We're going to obviously ask the Lord for help. But the next thing would then just be your pastor.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Now, chances are, I know people think, oh, really, your pastor? Well, here's the deal.
I mean, he's trained to give consult, isn't he?
Right. And your pastor ought to know, also reinforce what the Bible has to say about your home life and your marriage and your relationships as well. And he can be that practical third voice in terms of giving you like practical steps. Like if it's a communication issue, he'll help you work through those things as well. If there's an issue with resentment or whatnot, that's usually because something wasn't communicated, right? So a lot of people think like they've got some issues in their marriage, right? That's just irreconcilable, and that's why people get divorced, when the truth is you're far from a divorce, just like you're far from bankruptcy, just because you're in a little bit of debt.
Right.
So the purpose of this is to train you to be faithful to each other, to communicate, to problem solve, and all that. And by the way, an important thing too is working all of these things out before you say I do.
Yes,
so in other words,
yes. Go ahead.
You don't slide into the relationship and think, okay, well, I guess the next best step is marriage just because we're 2 years in or we're 3 years in. And that's just the thing people do. Really? How's that working out for 50% of all marriages in the United States? Right. So when my wife and I were dating, we literally had questions. Like we went into our dates with intention, and it was literally everything, all the questions that need to be addressed before you actually tie the knot, before you get married. And that helps. That saves you all the headache and the heartache on the back end, because if
people don't do that. I talk about that all the time. I said, listen, open your mouth and ask questions. I have avoided a lot of bad people by asking questions.
Absolutely. And my wife was aware of a lot of the problems. Yes, I had problems that I came to the relationship with, just as she had her problems as well. I had issues with pornography. I had issues with fornicating with women, and I can say that openly because she knows this stuff. It's not like she married some heathen and was like, oh, really? You had all this stuff in your closet? No, it was out in the open. We talked about it. But if you talk about it, now we can move forward from that and build the trust, and we have not violated our integrity. Everything down to like drug use, and have you done this? Do you have any debt? All these things, which I would think people would talk about before you get married, you should address, because here's the thing: up until that point, you're not tied. Like, you don't really, it's okay if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at the same time, if the intention is marriage, all of these more sensitive things like kids, how would you react if this happened? How do you want to raise our kids? What do you allow into the household and what don't you allow? What kind of people do you associate with? It's not to rule somebody's life. It's to find out how people click, because everyone's different. And the first mistake you make is kind of brushing those things under the rug and then thinking that it's not going to go away. But marriage doesn't make it go away. It just amplifies what already was there.
Yes.
So if you address these things in the relationship stage, that saves a lot of the turmoil that can happen in marriage. But to answer your question, Bible, pastor, that's a practical way of kind of dealing with issues. If you still have issues, and you're always still going to have issues. Like my wife and I will always have challenges, but we'll work through them together, with each other and stuff. So.
Is it because, and one of the things I preach or I actually advocate for women on my channel and men, is that when you meet someone that you want to marry, or you think that there's someone you want to have a long-term relationship with, make them your best friend. You want them to be your best friend. So when you are having problems with your best friend, let's look at the comparison between a couple who was just married because they got infatuated with each other, and versus someone who was your best friend that you're not married and you're not even intimate. Best friends fight all the time, but then they get over it and then they're like, you know what, let's talk about it. And then they move past it, versus people who are just in it for whatever physical reasons or maybe monetary reasons. When they come up with a big hurdle, they don't look at their partner as their best friend. They're thinking like, you know what, I'm just so out of here. And they're quick to quit, because there's nothing invested when it comes to a friendship, with this person. And so I tell a lot of women in particular, because women are famous for not asking questions and men will not volunteer information. But you have to know what it is you're dealing with so you don't waste each other's time. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think the analogy you pointed of like a best friend dynamic, it has to carry into your marriage as well. Because at the end of the day, you're not just intimate like lovers and married, but you're also best friends. My wife is my best friend.
Yeah,
and we were friends first before we got married. But here's also another distinction to make, and the reason why marriages also fail. And I believe that some of this is statistically backed as well. But again, you can do whatever you want with the data. Some people believe this to be true. I believe it to be true because it's also what the Bible says in terms of our experience. But that's the thing is we're in a culture right now that determines compatibility sexually. In other words, your physical attraction and sexual compatibility is the thing that you're going off of in terms of your relationship, which leads to your infatuation. And that really is it, because here's the thing, after all of that is done and through, you still got to live with this person.
Yeah.
So if you're not always infatuated with them, there's got to be a whole lot more there, whether it's your faith, the things that you do together. Do you even like this person at the end of the day, or do you just use them, as a body bag when you're frustrated?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
It's like people don't ask themselves this, because and I will say this, and you're going to get this obviously from a conservative Christian as well, but I didn't always live like this. Like, saving sex until after marriage is crucial, because it's a very clear line. And I believe in soul ties. It's like, it's like if you're not intimate before you get married, then you only have those things to work off of. Things that don't require physical intimacy or whatnot, like getting to know each other. And hey, if we need to have this conversation about kids or about marriage, we're going to have it now. We're not going to do it when we're blurred because we're infatuated with each other. We're going to do it right now.
Right.
When it's not so much of an emotional soul tie.
Right.
It's also not right. You shouldn't be fornicating before you're married.
So
I'm going to stand by that.
Sex is more of which I agree with, by the way. You see it as more of a distraction from the foundation of what a relationship's supposed to be built on.
Right, and it's not what in a marriage, sex is a fundamental part of that.
Right.
But it's something to be enjoyed within the confines of marriage. I'm not going to be one of those Christians where it's like, you're only going to have sex to have kids. Like, it's something for the husband and the wife to enjoy. But prior to that, all the decisions that you make, all the information that you need to get from each other before committing to each other, you can do without any of that.
Yeah.
Without getting in bed, without shacking up. And honestly, you kind of need to, because after you do that, all of a sudden you're sliding into something as opposed to deciding that you're going to be with that person. You see, people go, well, then how do you know your wife's going to be compatible or whatnot? You're going to be married the rest of your life, hopefully. You'll get better at it. You'll figure it out. Those are things that can be worked through in your marriage, but you've got to establish the foundation first, which is your faith and your communication and whatnot. And without that, it's not going to thrive. It really isn't. And so relationships now is predicated a lot on the lust, right? Physical attraction for somebody. You see something you want, you grab it, and you don't really care if she's, damaged goods or shouldering, a truckload of issues with her. You just care about what she looks like. But the truth of the matter is that's going to fade. I know a lot of women that are obviously going to be very attractive, but just to keep it consistent with the conversation, beauty is vain. It's important, but it is vain in the sense that it's not always going to be there. Like when
Right.
she's on your nerves, at 2 a.m. in the morning, she's not going to be that beautiful. She's not going to be that great. So
True.
you need more than that. Like you don't divorce your best friend, I would hope, right? So you're not
No,
going to
that's
divorce
what I'm
your
saying.
wife.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
you're
you
going to work
marry your
through it.
best friend, you're not gonna walk away so easily.
Correct.
If at all. If at all, though.
Right. So that's what marriage is. It's like my wife is my best friend, but she's also my wife. And like at the same time, understanding these boundaries, right, is incredibly important. Now, I had the same idea that most people had, like, oh, what's the deal with physical boundaries? It shouldn't matter. It does matter. I mean, I can't explain it. But when I decided to commit to my wife and we saved it for marriage and everything like that, that was important. Like it just kind of made it like, okay, we're married now. Like,
how did you have the self-control to do that? Because the guys are going to ask me that question. They're going to want to know that question.
The benefit that I had was it was largely a distance relationship.
Oh,
right?
okay.
But here's the thing. When we were together, we were never alone together.
What?
I know that sounds crazy, but we were never like alone. Like we could do things on our own, but it always involved having somebody, around.
Really?
Like,
a chaperone? Really? This is getting so good. Y'all had chaperones with you. Well, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, and it seems like that, but here's the thing. I figured, look, anything that I'm going to tell her, right now, you get your private time as well, but it wasn't. There was nothing that was going to warrant us, getting into a room together with nobody else, right? And here's the thing. I decided that. I wanted that. I just wanted to do right. And I knew that, look, if I was just going to do things right by people, and do things right by her as well, I knew God was going to honor that, and he did.
Wow.
So it was not a problem whatsoever.
I am so impressed.
All of our interactions didn't involve us being alone. Now, here's the thing. I always tell people as well that the whole chaperone thing, that's not Bible. That's just parameters that parents and churches have put into place to make sure you don't stumble in that area. So I'm not going to go around telling everybody you have to do this. You don't have to do it. We decided that was something that we wanted to do just in case. And I had nothing to hide. I wasn't going to sneak a kiss or anything like that, without anybody looking or whatnot. So there was no lying. There was no, I wondered what those two are up to. There was none of that. It was an open type thing. And people think, well, how can you get to know somebody if someone's always around you? Well, the truth is, you're not there's not constantly a third wheel, is what I'm trying to say. You can be together in the context of other people and have your time alone.
Without I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And you tell people that, and then they're like, I don't see how that happens. Well,
right. I do. I totally understand. Yeah.
So, and here's the thing. It's a benefit because it definitely forces you to have that conversation that you need to have. You can't be spending all this time just trying to finagle somebody into doing something that, you both quite shouldn't be doing or whatnot, because there was no opportunity to do that. And honestly, that was a blessing. Sometimes people are like, well, that's crazy, but it works. It's crazy, but I went to that marriage altar pure. I really did. Like, I was proud of myself. I was like, you know what?
You should be.
When we got married, I'll be honest, and I'll tell this to everybody too, because I am proud of this. I'm happy about it. We went to that altar. That first kiss, our first kiss, was witnessed by 100 other people. I had not kissed her until we got to the marriage altar.
Okay, that I'm afraid I don't have the I don't think I can have the discipline.
I'm telling you what I did. I'm telling you what I did.
I'm so impressed with you. How are you as a man?
I am not telling you that I would encourage people to do this. But
I can see that takes no. Actually, let me be clear, Zach. That takes so much discipline. You just gained more respect from me than ever before, because it just shows my weakness, and hence why I'm telling you that I am the sex I can abstain from, easy peasy. The kissing would be a huge challenge. And I noticed that it's easier for women to have more self-control than men. But here it is, you are a man who, used to watch pornography, you stopped. You used to fornicate with other women and stopped. So you already know what the forbidden fruit tastes like. And now you got to a point where you were able to avoid kissing. That is like an all-time level of discipline that I rarely see in any man.
Well, I appreciate that, but here's the thing. I don't have that strength. I don't have the discipline. So
well, how was you able to do that?
But here's the thing. If you create an environment where you're not going to stumble in that area the same way.
Okay. I get it.
It's not like you're next to the person you love and you just think about kissing them every moment. If you're in a place where it doesn't encourage that kind of behavior, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the thing is I want to make it very clear. I appreciate what you say, and it's very kind of you to say that, but I don't. I know that a man is still a man at best, and even David fell in adultery after Bathsheba, so he was a man after God's own heart, and he stumbled.
Yeah.
But so it's like I don't think that I am good enough or strong enough to be able to have all the discipline in the world to stumble, because I know I can. And part of the reason why I've been able to maintain is because I'm aware of that. Let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. I know I can fall at any point, but in the relationship, if you set up parameters, it's like quitting porn or whatnot. If you set up parameters and habit replacements where you're not going to fight this battle inside you of like, should I or shouldn't I, then you got to create ways to just abstain from it completely. And people think it's deprivation. It's not. You gain in the long run. This is the definition of you get to reap what you sow. You got to do it right. You try to pluck that seed out of the ground before it's ready, you're going to get no fruit whatsoever.
Right.
So I thought about it in those contexts. I'm like, look, I can kiss this woman, but I can kiss her when I get married to her. When, not if, because I already knew if I did it right, it was going to be that way. I knew that if I tried to take a shortcut, right, and try to circumvent what would have been the right thing to do, it probably would have cost me. It probably would have ended up. So why not just do things right? Why not just do it right the first time? And I'm not making any of this stuff up in terms of I came up with this. It's just Bible. It's just what we do, and it works. And if that's the case, then, it becomes predictable. It's not one of these things where it's like, I have to worry about if I'm marrying the right person. Is this the right person? Because if you're just following what it says and vetting people closely and doing what you're supposed to be doing, all the stuff about like, oh, is she going to cheat on me? Is this going to happen?
And that's where vetting comes in. And I wish people would get that in their heads. You got to vet. But I think what they're afraid of, Zach, is that they're either so caught up in the moment of this person being in their lives that they ignore the rules of vetting. And if they see red flags, they ignore that too, because they just want to have somebody to be in their lives.
It's funny, Tree, that you mentioned that, because women, have been sold this idea of never settle, right?
Yeah.
And have standards. But it's kind of ironic that never settle has transformed its way into I'm settling for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm not settling. You know what I mean? Because that's the funny thing is not settling in a way is correct.
Yeah.
Not settling, but it's not about not making compromises. It's just don't compromise on the things you can't live without.
Right.
Okay, if she's not a 10 out of 10 in this area, guess what? She's going to work towards that. You know what the funny thing is with like secular dating or whatnot like that? You know how a lot of these women, and Kevin Samuels, gets on them a lot. I try not to watch too much of that.
I love him. And I actually, he's so great when he basically tell the women what they're doing wrong, and he's on point.
He is. But what I was trying to say was like a woman who says, I would never marry, this is just an example. It's just a fun example. Like I would never marry a man who makes like 50 grand a year or whatnot. Right. And what women and then what we don't realize is you think he's going to stay at 50 grand a year for 20 years? You think he's going to have no upward mobility whatsoever? You think that this guy has no ambition?
Right.
I got news for you. Like he may be 20 years old. If he's 25 years old making 50 grand a year, And that's pretty good, by the way, for a 25-year-old.
Absolutely it is.
What makes you think that just like his habits and just like his job, his behavior is not going to compound into the future, and that 50 grand just might be 150 grand in 10 years or 500 grand in 30 years? You don't know, but what you can find out are the values that drive that person. So why not focus on the values? Don't focus on the fruit.
Yeah.
The fruit can be rotten for all you know, because if the roots aren't there, it's not going to grow. It's not going to work. And reaping and sowing is not just a concept used in finances, but it's also with people, with your behavior and everything. So that's what's so funny is the idea that, wow, did it ever occur to you that you're only seeing a snapshot of somebody right now, but in 10, 15 years, that can be radically different depending on what direction they take. And a woman actually has a say and an impact on how a man's life is going to turn out. Hey, maybe don't divorce him so he won't be broke.
Right.
Maybe have some kids with him and you guys raise a family together and both of you work, or maybe just he works and you guys save your money. Did it ever occur to you that you could have that, but you're just focusing on the wrong thing?
Right. That's so true. I don't believe in divorce. What are your comments on that?
Yeah, obviously, when it comes to something like that, what the Bible says in terms of like marriage is, they become one flesh, right? It's like trying to, tear your arm off because you guys are now one. I obviously, being a Christian, I'm not a proponent of divorce. And obviously, when in marrying my wife, I intend to be with her till death.
Right.
It's only in death that we separate. I think that my thoughts on divorce, in terms of if we were going to look at this through the lens of how our culture is people throw in the towel too quickly.
Right.
And people get married for the wrong reasons.
Absolutely for the wrong reasons.
So here's the thing. It's not that 50% of marriages end in divorce. It's just that 50% of people don't make the right decisions and aren't willing to fight for their spouse and what they believe in. Now, that's on you. Don't marry a train wreck. Obviously, I'm not saying if you marry a train wreck, you're going to get what you get, right? Which is why it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, as this can be avoided. It's preemptive. You can actually dodge the bullet beforehand by finding these things out
easily.
And I don't believe it in either, but people think, oh, well, that's impossible because of the statistics. And I go, yeah, because most people are not doing the right things. Most people are not. Most people are miserable. Most people aren't doing things right. Just because the majority gets divorced doesn't mean that has to be the case for you, especially if you do things that are contrary to what they're doing. I mean, it's like, it should be a light bulb. If I don't do what everybody else is doing, which is going after what just looks right and just, you would
think it's that common sense, but common sense is not common.
Common sense is not commonplace. Right.
True.
So,
it's like there's a saying that, a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise one learns from others' mistakes. So when I see somebody make these mistakes, I go, oh, so these are the things they did to get these results. Let me make sure I don't do those things so that I don't get those results, because those results are what I'm not looking for, and therefore I do things. And then I also look at people who are having the results I wish to acquire, and look at what they did to make that work.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true, because a lot of people think that. And this is going to sound kind of funny, but everybody is special, right? We're all unique, we're all different, but we're not special in terms of we're an exception to the rule.
Right.
That's the thing. You see, and a lot of people go into it, both men and women alike, think, well, I'm the exception to the rule because I'm special. And although that is true that you are special,
you are not
special in terms of the anomaly. Right. You're not the anomaly in it. Success leaves clues. If you just follow what works, the results more often than not are going to produce, what it is you set out to do. And since you asked about divorce too, just to kind of add this in as well, in terms of Christianity and what I believe about divorce with what the Word of God says, divorce in itself, right, actually is not the issue. The issue is if you separate from your wife, because here's the thing, the Bible says, like, obviously, if you've got a spouse that's violently abusing you, you got to separate for your own good.
For your own health.
And there's parameters, and people don't know this. So the greater issue here is not divorce. Because if you separate from your spouse, the whole purpose is to be reconciled, to
Right.
work through those differences. But if you're in a dangerous home, you got to get out.
Right.
You got to get out
Right.
with your
Right.
kids.
Right.
So I will say separate with the goal of being reconciled to that person. The greater issue in the Bible is remarriage, which is you were not divorced, but it's like, so like if you were divorced or separated and that person was still alive and you went out and married somebody else, that's actually the greater issue. But if you separated because of a dangerous home or whatnot, while that person is still alive, you shouldn't remarry. That's actually what it says. Because I know a lot of people will say, well, if you're against divorce, what if the husband is physically abusive? Then separate.
Here's
Do
my
what you
answer
gotta
to that.
do.
And this is me being a former police officer. And also, you know, my mother was pretty abusive to my dad, but she was an abusive person anyway. There's clues. I have never seen an abusive person hide their abuse. I don't think I have the Jedi mind tricks, or I ain't got these special powers where I can point out an abuser when I see one. But this is the reason why people's like, well, have you ever dated a guy that beat you? I say, what? I can't relate to that, because one, they're never in my radar. And two, if they ever were to be in my radar, I will see the small build up to it because an abuser don't automatically start hitting you. They start with the verbal abuse. They start with the disrespect. They start with the belittling you. They start making you feel like you're nothing without them. And I have too much self-esteem and self-pride for that to happen. But maybe other women are not that intuitive with that. And so with that, if they ignore those red flags and they got married to that clown, and then all of a sudden the abuse comes, absolutely, I totally agree with you. Separate. And I like what you said, you know, get remarried. But I guess you're saying that only when he gets to the point where he's going to take accountability and counseling and do things to make himself a better husband.
Right. And then that's the thing. I want to make it very clear that, you know, if we're going to hang ourselves, right, just on that one thing of this person is just abusive and whatnot, the attitude here is, well, if that's the case, then we're always going to make an exception for that, right? And that shouldn't be the attitude. The attitude is not, well, what if in this case, this is so bad that I just have to divorce him? And people will make up all kinds of excuses. It's almost like bankrupting yourself when you were never bankruptable, right? You're just throwing in the towel. The whole purpose of that separation is so that you can be reconciled to each other. Because if it's a dangerous home, he should get help. If he's drug addicted, you got to get help.
Right.
And remarriage is the greater abomination in God's eyes, because it is adultery
to another
right?
person. Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah,
but here's the thing: you got to separate if it means your life and your kids.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that clear, because people think, well, you think a woman's just never going to get out of that abusive household?
No,
that's
not
what
at all.
I said.
Yeah.
I said not divorce. But it even says,
I'm pretty strict with it. I'm pretty strict, like, and you can listen to my audience. They'll tell you I'm strict, because I've had that answer. I had that question given to me before. I'm like, no, get out of the situation. But it's your fault, because you should have saw the signs there in the first place. So now you got a problem. Offer him some counseling. Tell him, you know, he's not allowed to come back into the home until there's obvious signs that he has done the counseling, done the work to be a good husband, and then you both go to couple therapy counseling together.
Correct. And I guarantee you that people throwing in the towel are not doing what you just said. They're not. Yeah, I mean, like, no. There's no way to reconcile this marriage. Yeah, right. You need to try. In fact, you're getting divorced because somewhere down the road, either someone cheated or someone gave up. But you haven't done everything that you possibly can do.
I love to use this example. Like, I guess let's look at the best friend. You know, say if my best friend, I guess, cheated on me by, you know, saying I want to ask her to go to the movies with me, and then she said, oh, I'm gonna stay at home and wash my hair, and I find out she went out to the movies with another best friend. Am I going to divorce her? Am I going to say, oh my God, you went out with Sally instead of coming out with me? You lied to me. of course, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be so mad.
Right,
But
right.
I'm not going to get rid of my best friend. We're going to have to talk it out. We may have to have somebody to be the mediator. And because now I'm mad and I got to forgive her for this because I still want her around as my best. Because that's why it's important to have these people as your best friend. Because when they do some little minor incident, it's not a zero tolerance kill buttons, kill switch. Like, oh, you went to the movies with her and not me and lied to me. Oh, you're done. It's over. Don't you ever call me again? Don't you ever? We would never do that. Okay.
We give our best friends so much grace, and we don't even give our spouses.
Right.
That
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, ladies, make sure you are with your best friend. Men, make sure you are with your best friend that you will marry. If they're not your best friend, don't even talk about marriage, in my opinion. There's no point in it. Because then when things start to go awry, when it gets really hot in the kitchen, you want out. And you want out with some legal papers.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what you say is true. What you say is very, very consistent, with what I believe as well. But I like that about what you were saying, because you said that you can detect these things in an abuser before the abuse happens, and that is 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. I mean, and people say, well, that I've seen people go from 0 to 100. Yeah, but they're bubbling. There's a lot of repression there. Most of the time, it starts in the things that we allow in our lives.
Right. Yes.
Which is why, like, I'll be honest, my wife was actually engaged before. Like, nothing happened, but she was engaged before, and she ended that relationship to somebody who was manipulative, somebody who was a gaslighter. And the thing is, when you're in that relationship, and this is, it's what we hear all the time, because you built up a tolerance to the gaslighting and the abuse, you're not going to see it even if it hits you between the eyes. Which is why the counsel of others is so crucial. A lot of people think, I'm totally going to marry this guy, and all the friends are like, absolutely not. There's a problem. It's not because they don't want you to be happy.
Right. They know you. They know that person.
And it was the case with my wife and her, her ex was, Dad didn't approve. Dad was actually going to step in, but he didn't want to lose her. He didn't want her to resent him forever.
Right.
Pastor didn't like him. Kind of a guy who just wasn't the right fit. I'll put it that way. Right. So, but she wasn't able to see that, you see, until she came to her senses. Like, God opened her eyes in a sermon her pastor preached, and she was like, I got to end this. I got to get out. And thank God that happened. Right. But what I'm trying to say is, to your credit, it doesn't start. It wasn't just over in one night.
Right.
These things bubble in and they slip through the cracks. And if you're not aware and you're not checking in with people because you think you're just so in love, you're going to miss these things even if it hits you square in the face.
Right.
So, you're right. It's not an abuser, starts off like that. It's the gaslighting.
Yeah.
Then it's the manipulation. Yeah. Then it's the verbal abuse. And then pretty soon it's the physical abuse. And
right.
Then, who knows what happens next. Right?
Exactly.
So,
and I think one of the things, because of how I was raised, and then, of course, the PTSD that came from being a police officer, I'm very aware of people's energy. I'm very aware of their actions. I see it all. Even online, I'm really good at telling somebody's character just by the things that they say, how they say it, and the way they go about it. That's how come everybody I said was a bad person or a grifter, I end up being proven right in the end.
I know. I watched some of those videos you did about, what was that guy's name?
King Face.
King,
yeah.
He wasn't bad.
And I caught so much hate when I first said when I said he's not in a coma. I had so many people come after me, okay? And then I was like, okay, give me the name of the hospital. And they wouldn't. And so when I started calling all the hospitals, oh, guess what? King Face is dead. And I'm like, he ain't dead. And then I had came out with proof that he isn't.
This doesn't add up.
No,
yeah.
And guess what? It finally came out that they actually looked at every record, death certificate record, and morgue record in New York, New Jersey, and in Vermont and New Hampshire. These are all the places that are close to there. None. His name was not listed on any of these places. So I was like, "Thank you. You can say thank you now. Tree was right." You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
yeah.
And that's what I appreciate about you is you're always an arbiter of truth, and that's what I stand by as well. Which is why I think you can understand, in the broader context of politics and whatnot. I am as well fed up with conservatism as a whole, not because I no longer believe in it, but it's because people are not living it. They speak conservative, but they don't live it. And I'm like, I checked out, but I live conservative. I not just like my politics, but I mean, I'm living conservative.
Like I said, there's no such thing as a conservative thug. That don't make sense.
No, and you hit the nail on the head. That's what I tell people. Like, I'm a conservative feminist. I'm a conservative. No, it's an
conservative
oxymoron.
Prostitute.
Right? No. And people. Like the term liberal has been hijacked, so has the term conservative. Because here's the thing. There is liberalism in terms of liberty in Christian living.
Yeah.
I have more freedom in Jesus Christ now than I ever had, and I don't see it as shackles. I'm not in bondage to something. Oh, you got to live with all these rules and everything. No. I do it because I want to, not because I have to. No one's twisting your arm. And that's the thing about Christianity that most people don't understand, is that it's not about doing good things for an end result. You're working from the good that has been done, not the good that you're about to do.
Right.
Jesus already did it all for you. And the liberty that we have in Christian living, obviously there are confines. You're not just going to do as your flesh pleases.
Right.
But it's not like God's depriving you of fun. Like, you just follow these rules and you're actually going to have a happy life. Like, even if I wasn't doing this, from living the Christian life, it's still the best way to live. I wouldn't trade it, because
I agree, Zach.
I don't have the burdens that other people have, because I didn't dig these holes in my life.
You're not suffering from depression like 85% of the left is suffering. They're
Absolutely
on Xanax
not.
and a lot of antidepressants because they are miserable.
And that is sometimes its own reward in itself that you don't see until you see it in hindsight, where you go, wait a minute. It's not that I can't go out and do all the things I want to do. It's I'm doing the things that I want to do that God sees as being acceptable. And I'm okay with that because my heart's content with where I'm at. And he's also sparing me from a lot of things that could go wrong. Sometimes you don't see it like that either, where it's like, wait a minute. I think about it for a second. My wife and me and our soon to be family have simple, modest Christian lives. But, there's no heartache in the family.
Right.
There's no disease. We're healthy. We have no debt. We've got no one trying to come after us. There's no depression. There's no mental illness. There's no anything. And there's a church family that we have and support and everything. And I go, you want to give that up? I can't see living a life any happier or more content than the life that I'm living right now. It doesn't mean we're done here. I mean, there's always improvements and strides made. Living the life
only get
that
better.
we're living, right. And it doesn't mean when you live this way that you have no ambition and you're complacent. You're always striving for more, but at the same time, you are content, right? You are content without being complacent, is what it is. So
yeah, and especially and speaking of it can get better. So you have a little bundle of joy coming soon, huh?
I do.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
It's
our
so
son's going to be
fast.
born this summer. Yeah,
Really?
It's going to happen fast. Yeah. So,
are you nervous, scared, happy? Over like, what are the emotions going through you right now of coming with your future son coming?
I'm really excited. I mean, I'm really excited. I obviously am a little nervous because I'm going to be a first-time parent. So, but it's a blessing, and I'm really excited to have a son. Thankfully, I'm not doing this alone because I have my wife.
Right, and that's how it's supposed to be. Yes.
But more importantly, just the people around us as well. I mean, my pastor has, he's got 7 kids of his own, so he knows a thing or two about doing this. My wife comes from a family where she is the 8th child of 12 siblings. So,
Wow.
you know, I know you're probably thinking, oh, like, you know, Duggar family or
No,
Bates family.
no. I
But
mean, my grandmama
similar-
had 8 children. I think my uncles and my mom and my aunt, nobody had more than 3 children. I don't know
okay.
why I don't know why that was, but it is that's what it is. So I'm pretty used to big families.
Yeah. And that's so I look at it in the context of that, right? It's like, you
Mm,
know, her parents raised 12 kids, and my dad is the oldest of 7. I just have a brother, but I've kind of been around big families, and you know, we're family oriented. Both of our families are. So I am nervous and a little bit scared, but I also rest in knowing that, you know, we're gonna live by what the Lord wants us to do. He's gonna guide our every step. And you know, thankfully, I'm blessed to say that I have people that will support us as well, and I don't have to do this alone. I
that
mean,
is
you know, I've got to
so
take care of myself,
great. Oh my
but I
gosh.
can go to them for counsel, for support if I feel like, you know, I'm losing it and the you know, the house is on fire or whatnot. Thankfully, you know, there'll be some folks there. So, but the most important thing is the marriage. You know, I am
Yeah.
married with a wife doing this. I'm not having a child out of wedlock, because that
Yes.
is different, you know. So it's, if you get it in that order, it doesn't seem so scary because it's
Right.
just something that we do. And I here's the thing. I know if I say anything, it's going to be naive of me because I've never done it. Nobody goes into parenting with experience, firsthand experience at
True.
least. So it's also going to be you know, I'm going to learn as I go, and but also try to be as prepared as I can. So
Hmm. I bet you your dad is so excited, isn't he?
he's stoked. He's
Oh
ready to be
man,
a grandpa. Yeah.
I know
So
he's excited so much. So now you are you have your baby boy coming. You are married to a beautiful woman. By the way, she is pretty. I saw her on your
oh,
website. So
thank
you
you.
two make a beautiful couple.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah.
What do you anticipate doing in the future? Well, I don't see you having time to do anything on YouTube when the baby gets here.
Well, you know, again, like, it's just about managing my time a little bit better. Because I will say this: as much as am busy and I'm doing stuff, like, it's important, and I will make time for it. So there
Hmm.
will be an outlet for me to get back on and make videos. And my wife also, she's been encouraging me to do it more. People at the church,
Yeah,
you know,
she's
they're
your
like, you know,
rock. That's good. Yeah.
yeah, you know, and I like that. You know, she
Mhm.
doesn't feel like, no, you're that's taking away. Like, I want you to do this. You know, she's you know, my biggest supporter, which is great. So I will be making videos geared more towards that. And inevitably, you know what it is with the Christianity thing was, now it's the foundation, right? So
Mhm.
now I can go back and talk about these things about dating and politics and stuff through that lens, because now I'm a little bit more grounded in what I was. Now, even when you first spoke to me 2 years ago, it was still, I'm looking for things. I know
Mhm.
what kind of truth is, but I don't really. I mean, I was a Christian, but I wasn't rooted in anything. Because even with conservatism, without the faith that I have right now, I think I would have just been like any other grifter. Because conservatism is hip for some people. It's the new
Yeah, oh
counterfeit.
my
But
gosh. And that's
most
why
people,
I said I'm done with you guys because I said I don't know I said all these people doing stuff that I see liberals doing and y'all calling yourselves conservatives.
yeah, and you're absolutely right. So as a result, you know, I didn't want to push, like, the whole aspect of even Christians. You know, Christians made the biggest mockery of themselves when they say, "Hey, we're going to prophesy this word, and Trump's going to win another term," and he didn't.
Right?
You were wrong,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of conservatives and Christians had to eat their words. And unfortunately, that's the type of word of faith type apostasy that's going on right now, is that people like Christianity in terms of its so-called benefits, but they don't really know what it means to be a Christian, to live that way. And Jesus said it himself, you know, if you don't deny yourself, take up your cross, you're not worthy to be my disciple. Now, he was illustrating what you're signing up for, which is like when people say, I want to be a Christian, I want to do these things. Well, it does mean something. It's just not a label you can slap on yourself. And Christians and conservatives alike, you can be a grifter tomorrow if you want to, and just put a MAGA shirt on, and I witnessed that alongside you with so many so-called women that are liberal at heart, just knowing they can just reap the money from suckers out there. Just with a a little bit of tradcon here and a little bit of MAGA culture here, and there you go. The bank you're going to be bankrolled because of that.
Yeah.
I wasn't having it. I'm like, these people are all frauds.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
and that's so you and I have that in common in that, like, I am a conservative. You're a conservative, but the difference here is conservatism because it's the truth, because that's nature, because that's what God intended, because that's what the country was built on, regardless of the idiots that slap that label on themselves.
Right.
Some of these people don't even know what they believe. If you cornered them and asked them and interrogated them about what they believe, they couldn't tell you. No, they couldn't tell you exactly what they believe.
Think they're cultists. They're just going with what is hip and forbidden, actually. You know what I'm saying? That's all that is. Because the left done lost their mind. They have just gone so far. It's like, who wants to be them? So of course people are going to come over here, but they're bringing in baggage over here with them. And I'm like, I don't know y'all. Who y'all, we ain't the same. Anyway, like that.
What they want is they want all the benefits, but they don't recognize as well that, it means something. Like, it actually used to mean something to stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
And defend truth, because that's what it is just the truth, and the truth oftentimes offends. And a lot of these conservatives, what they do is they get as close to the line of truth as possible without actually crossing it, so that they can reap all the benefits of being conservatives. But when it comes down to it, and the minute it's no longer in their best interest to be a conservative, they're gone. Yeah, like Brandon Tatum. Brandon Tatum's the biggest fraud out there.
I heard people. Now, I don't watch Brandon Tatum, but I heard he made a big flip. Because I can't stand the man, but I heard he made a big flip against Christianity or something like that. Like,
he is 100% wrong in his beliefs, and this guy has a platform in these evangelical churches now. I mean, yeah, he kind of dabbles in the politics and stuff. I haven't kept up with him as much. I know he's I know how you feel about him, but for me, it's like, okay, I get it. He's a presentable guy, nice guy to these folks, a little arrogant, of course, but he's 100%. Yeah, but he's 100% wrong about Jesus Christ, the deity of it. It sounds more like a Jehovah's Witness more than anything else. Now, that's another conversation itself, but that's an example of what I mean. There are these people that are Christians, but it's not Bible Christianity.
Yeah, I don't even. I probably had to go watch this content because I'm totally in the dark. Where a lot of Christians are angry with him and don't want to have anything to do with him anymore.
And then that's the thing is, like, if somebody is a heretic and he's a false prophet, we would want to encourage him to get right. But if he's going to continue spreading a false message, those that cause divisions among you, you got to mark them and avoid them. And you don't want to throw pearls to swine, like what the Bible says. So it's and the thing about Brandon is he's obviously a very influential figure in conservatism now. And even you could arguably say Christianity. But it's also just because he's louder than everybody else, not because he knows any better.
And very arrogant, and very confrontational. But he's scared of me, by the way. He don't want none of this smoke.
He won't talk to you.
He came to Atlanta, and he didn't tell nobody he came to Atlanta because he knew I was going to come to Blexit, and he kept it a secret. And I didn't know he was in Atlanta until I saw him on stage. You know what I'm saying? I was like, why you keeping a secret? You know what I'm saying? Him and Candace had a whole bunch of security around them. And I was like, I was never going to approach them. I was just going to expose Blexit for the fraud it is. But I had no intentions because I ain't going to jail. I mean, I know me. I know who knows what I would have done had I seen them. But I had avoided them. But the fact is that he kept it hush-hush that he was coming to Atlanta. And nobody knew until he was on stage. It was like, oh, okay, I see it. But anyway, so does anybody have any questions for Zach? Because we're gonna wrap it up at 6:30. This was so awesome. I can't wait to have you back on later on in the year. You know, when you have your beautiful little baby boy, because I want to see some pictures and things like
Yeah.
that. So I want to
We'll
see
make
how
a
to.
debut. I mean, my wife and I keep throwing the idea on about like, oh, should we have a YouTube channel together? Because come on, that'll be interesting. Because it's
Yeah,
like not,
yeah, yeah.
but it's also it's interracial, right? So you know how
Just
people are.
how
They're gonna be like, they're gonna ask about that. So I don't.
are there any Christian? I'm sure there are. I don't even know any, but because that's not my genre. I'm always on the politics section of YouTube. But is there a genre of Christian couples, bloggers on or vloggers on YouTube that you know of?
Yeah, there's a lot of them, Tree, but here's the thing,
Really?
right? They are Christians in the sense that yes, they are, but they may not necessarily be living everything. They may not necessarily be like me. I'm just being
Okay,
honest. Where
okay,
it's like
okay, okay,
Bible
okay.
oriented and everything, because like Brittany Dawn, that fitness influencer now, like she's a Christian now, and she's doing all kinds of stuff, and you've got a lot of these Christian couples, but a lot of it is very like lifestyle. It's very like the positivity, the uplifting thing, the influencing,
Okay, okay.
very very kind of seeped in with progressivism and everything, and um, there's none that in terms of like Christianity, like Bible believing Christianity, that I could recommend that I would even support. But they are out there. It's just a matter of the stripe that you're looking for, because
Mm,
what you'll find is a lot of these Christians, they are Christians, but there's no substance, in a lot of the things that they're talking about. They'll say like, we believe in Jesus and Jesus loves everybody, and
yeah,
Jesus loves you too, and it doesn't get to the core of anything. I mean, that's not even what the Bible defines as being real Christianity. I mean, if you're a
right,
Christian because you grew up in a preacher's home or a church or whatnot, and you think that that's the litmus test for Christianity, you're in for a rude awakening, because it's anything but.
right.
So that's all I'm going to say about that, is that it's kind of like conservatism, right? Like with you, and the conservatism you push is the truth, and it's
Mm,
real and it's raw, and it's almost like offensive. Like it's not quite what you want to hear, but you got to hear it because it's the
yeah,
truth. And
right,
that's what I'm trying to say, is that these Christians won't get to the root of the abortion issue, because it's not in their best interest. They
right.
won't tell the truth about why you shouldn't support certain things. They won't even proclaim the good news of the gospel, because the gospel is an offensive message.
Mm.
So that's what I mean. But they are out there. There's a bunch of these like cutesy, Instagram worthy couples,
I'm
and they're
okay.
all
I
over.
don't care about them.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, we have
Yeah.
a question. Marjan Bond says, when will Zach make more videos?
I don't have an exact date on that. I'm getting a lighting set up here in a little bit, and then I'm gonna get back to pumping out more content, hopefully in the next few weeks or so, and kind of do something that I know will be sustainable and consistent, because it's all about balance, right? I don't
Mm,
want to do this thing where it's like when my baby comes in and I stop again. I hate that, and I hate having to stop make videos. And obviously I'm not doing it for the clicks or the views. I
right.
do like making videos. So it's just a matter of finding that balance between setting time aside to produce videos and to make them. And I'm not gonna lie, I mean, I'm making excuses for why I can't do it. So, I'm using this also hopefully as a jumping off point. It's like, all right, I got to get back to it and do it. So, to answer Majin Bond's question, hopefully, Lord willing, within the next few weeks or so, once I can get my stuff together, because yeah, I don't have it together in this area yet. So
Okay. Gabriella says, any advice for people that are still looking for a partner in this hookup culture?
I guess you could watch the entire stream from the beginning.
Yeah, you came in a little late, Gabriella. We talked about that actually. So I think she came in late. But this
Stay in
video.
church and just I don't know. Like, get in church and let the Lord sort it out. That's my advice. I don't
Okay.
know.
WG Phil says, does Zach still do the Made and Paid podcast? Or is his hiatus like the YouTube channel? Or is it in hiatus like the YouTube channel?
It's in hiatus, and it's not because I didn't want to continue that with my co-host, but it's just too much at one time, and
Mm,
that's personally a problem that I will admit to. Was I tried to take on more than I could handle, and it's that between work and getting married and whatnot. Again,
Mm-hmm.
they're excuses, but they are valid excuses because it takes away from what's important right now. So to answer your question, Phil, hiatus indefinitely for the podcast, but the YouTube channel will come back because I mean, it's just it's just where I am in life, and more pushing the Christian doctrines and whatnot, which inevitably will lead to surfacing the political and social content as well, just throughout that lens. It's just a matter of getting it right. So yeah, it's in hiatus at the moment, but the YouTube channel will be back soon. So
All right.
whatever.
Okay. Well, I am going to, I forgot to leave your YouTube channel in the description, but I'll make sure I do that. So we're going to wrap it up. Do you have any closing words you would like to leave us with there, Zach?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Tree, for having me on your channel. For those of you, again, I am a Christian, I'm a Bible believer, and I would encourage you to, check out some of the content I have, regarding the matter of salvation. That is the most important decision that we'll have to make in this life, when it comes to the context of eternity. I know, Tree, you're a bit of an agnostic, but, I want you to hear this as well. And I
Yeah.
would hope that, folks really, determine that, because our lives are mortal at the end of the day. We don't really have a lot of time on this planet, and really we should be thinking about where it is we're going to be spending eternity. And for some of you that may be mumbo jumbo, but I would encourage you to see what the Bible has to say about that. Christianity unfortunately has a bad label, but most of the time it's mainly because you're not getting Bible Christianity. You're getting
Mm,
Christianity through the lens of Joel Osteen or whatnot,
mm,
which is not
mm,
the right thing. So,
mm.
yeah, Tree, I just really appreciate you having me on my
Yeah, I'm
channel. My
glad to
closing
have it
thoughts are to
so
thank you.
educational.
Yeah,
This was such a good interview, and I knew it was going to be good. I knew it was going to be good. I had no
yeah.
doubts. Okay,
I'm
like
not going to
that.
go off the rails like some of your guests in the past. So.
When they do, I just let them. I'm like, okay. And I think the only guest that went off the rails, and I was just saying to myself, like, why me? Was Jesse Lee Peterson? I was like, okay, Jesse, because he tried to psychoanalyze me, and I was like, Jesse, I'm here to interview you. We're not talking about me, but yeah, but tell me about your father. Tell me like this. That
I
was
remember that.
people.
Yeah.
People was like, wow, Tree has a lot of self control. That was the
Well,
only
you've had everybody from David Duke to Richard
true.
Spencer to
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
in between. So if there's anybody who's going to be able to hold the fort, even with all of that, it's you. So
True.
yeah,
Thank you. I
I know it's
appreciate
not
that.
right. It's everybody. I mean, yeah, David. I mean, I don't want to say that on YouTube for the algorithm, but
No, no, it doesn't matter. I'm in their good graces now, so they'll keep the video monetized. Trust me. It's like I have now that they realize I'm going to act right and stop saying bad words and this is a positive channel. So now that it's, and when I say recently, I'm talking about in the last 2 weeks they started like monetizing all my videos. So like I guess
Mhm.
I'm in their good graces again. So there's that. All right. Well, guys, we're gonna sign off. I know I never stream on Saturdays. This is the time that Zach had open and available, and I am going to cater my schedule to him because, as you can see, this is why. So, without further ado, I will put Zach's YouTube channel in the description box, so you all go and subscribe to him. So when he starts uploading videos, you'll be right there, and we can still catch up on his backlog of videos too. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much, and Zach, thank you so much for coming by as well. And my taters love to see you as always. And I guess we'll keep in touch then, huh?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tree, again. I look forward to reconnecting again.
Yeah. All right. Bye, taters.